Hi, in this video I'm going to be covering some of the slightly smaller samples that I produced as part of the course. I want to start with the hand woven samples here. They were part of exercise 1.3, working with traditional materials. They're both made with jute string as a basis, and then I've woven into them. Now all of these wools and fabrics in this case were dyed as part of my experiments into natural dyeing. They're very small, 6 centimetres by 12 centimetres, something like that. They're very subtle, the coloration's very subtle and very traditional, I feel, quite homespun, if you like. I like the different colour variations that you find within it due to them being hand dyed, and the real rustic feel to them. They're not very soft. I suppose if you were going to use them for anything, it would be interiors. They certainly wouldn't be very comfortable to wear. This one's slightly softer perhaps than that one. I think it's because it's got the fabrics in there, so whereas this one's pure wool, so it is quite hard. I really like the connection to nature that I get from these, and the feeling of making everything myself. Although I didn't spin the wool or anything, I did hand dye every part of it, and I really like that connection. I think particularly if you used dyes that you'd grown yourself, which obviously I went to do on later in the course, you'd get a real sense of place with them as well. So that's why I chose those two. Okay, moving on to this rust dyed and eco print sample. I did this as part of exercise 2.2, found materials. It's not the best sample I made, but I think I've just learnt so much from doing it. It was probably the first sample I'd made in that section that I had some sort of result that I could relate to, really. And it did go on to influence my final piece for that part of the course, in that it looks like it's been dug up. It looks like it's been buried for a while. It was actually hand dyed in turmeric with some iron. You can see some washers and some plant material to get an eco print. Visually, like I say, it kind of reminds me of a piece of really old textile that's been in the ground for a long time. It's 13 centimetres by 26 centimetres. Okay, it's quite soft but sturdy, not very flowing. And I think the thing I like about it most is it has a sense of history, both in the fabrics that it's been used. It's still got the embroidery there, which I find gives it a bit of history. And also the washers as well. I'm very into engineering as well as sewing, weirdly, so that's quite fitting for me. And it could be used really easily to tell a story. In fact, it has its own story to how it was processed. You can still see the string marks where I bundled it, and that's what I really like about it. It's got a true sense of place and time and history, I think. Right, these eco print samples are the next ones that I've chosen. They were both done as part of the transforming textiles section, and they're both eco prints, like I say. One's on felt, one's on cotton, so quite different feel and look to the fabrics. I'll start with the cotton one. It's a lovely bright orange I've achieved on here, which is, it took me a long time to manage to achieve a bright colour and a very clear print. These leaves were all actually soaked in madder, and you can see I've got some silver birch, some ivy and some oak leaves there. They were bundled around a stick, same as all the other prints that I did, but I had to soak the leaves first and then put them on, and that's why I've got this lovely rich colour. I'd chosen orange because it usually is used to denote change, so that worked well with the theme of transforming. And obviously it went from being a very plain piece of cotton or felt in this one's case to being highly patterned and totally different. It changed the entire look of the fabric, which is what I was looking for. The felt one is 11 centimetres by 13, and the cotton one is 30 by 14. Like I say, one's very soft, one's quite sturdy. They're complete opposites, but they're tied together with this wonderful colour and the print, and I was really pleased with the print. I find them both quite soothing, actually, and they remind me of the autumn. I suppose it's the orange probably and the leaves, and they're very interesting if you're getting really close, especially on the oak leaves, you can actually see the veins of the leaves. They're absolutely fascinating, and it's something I'd like to develop a lot further moving forward. Okay, now the curly crooked basket. This one was made as part of the last part of the course, actually, or the last but one, playing with sustainable materials. It's made of water hyacinth and various bits of, there's other bits of cordage in there, some of the sedge that I used on the big basket. There's some string and threads that I dyed as part of the dyeing section. I'd reuse those, trying to be sustainable. I didn't like the string. I think that was the biggest problem with this. I quite like this kind of knobbly texture going on. I like the spirals, which actually I kept for the final piece, but the string didn't seem to have the same balance, and it just didn't quite work as a texture with it. And when you look inside, you can, I don't know if you can see that, but it's quite baggy. It didn't really work as well, but it did give me the starting point for the final basket, which is why I've chosen it. It's a little bit smaller than the other basket, and it goes quite easily in one hand, really. Again, it's quite usable. I can put my hand in. It's rounded. It's, like I say, very knobbly and organic. It's physically, it's quite hard. It's not as soft as the other basket that I made for the final piece. And it's quite crunchy, quite flexible. What I do like about it, though, is, again, it was probably the making of it. It's a very physical process, and you get very tied up and feel very connected to your materials with this. And I think I thought at the time, you know, if I corrected these problems here, like I say, this is just too baggy and you'd get caught up in it, so it became not really very usable. It could have been lined, but it was a fault, if you like, that I corrected on the final piece. So it was a kind of learning part of the journey, I suppose, this one, onto the final piece, which I really am pleased with. So that's why I've chosen it for this bit, for a closer look. Right, my final ones that I've chosen aren't really a sample at all, to be honest, but they're part of the process. There's something that I've really learnt from this course and something I will be taking forward into my work in the future. So I thought I'd end up with these. This is my little selection here. There's some cotton threads here and some cordage. Now, these were all made from the daffodils that I grew in the dyer's garden that I planted right at the beginning of the course. They've been developing, growing, obviously, and I managed to drag out working the course, because it did take me a long time, until they'd flowered and everything else. So I used their flower heads to make some dye. I didn't manage to dye a lot because I didn't have very many, but I did manage to get these two skeins out. And you can see there are different colours. The bright yellow is the daffodil leaves on flowers on their own, and this kind of khaki limey colour was created by adding some iron to the mixture at the end, and that's what's made the colour difference. And I really like that. That's what I find so exciting about the natural dyeing process. The cordage was made from the leaves, so nothing was wasted. And I twisted it. I dried the leaves, then I sort of reconstituted them, if you like, and then they were twisted to make this cordage, and it's lovely and smooth. I don't know whether you can see that. I can't get it to focus. Lovely and smooth, and it smells, especially when you're working it, it has a real, yeah, a real plant springy smell to it. It's absolutely divine, and that's what I found so exciting about this course, was discovering this. So I thought I'd end with that. I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with them. I did use a little bit of this in my final basket, but I am working on some other samples at the moment, so I'm sure these will come in useful. But I thought I'd end up on that point, because that is really what I've gained from this course, is this whole new set of skills that I didn't have before, which I'm really excited to be carrying on with in the future.